How do we farrow our pigs on pasture? I'm Rob from Dowdle Family Farms, and we are a farrow to finish pork producer. Depending on the season, we raise our pigs on fields of cover crops and in forested paddocks. Our pigs are rarely in the same place for any extended period of time, and farrowing and weaning our pigs is a bit of a hassle. In this video, I want to show you how we manage our breeder pigs, how we farrow, how we wean, and how we train those weaned pigs to the electric fence so that they're ready to graze our lush cover crop fields. There are many different ways to manage breeder pigs, and some of them are more effective than others. And while I plan to manage our breeders a little differently in the future, I have chosen a production model that is easier in my context. I have one boar, Ferdinand, and anywhere between 4 and 10 sows or gilts. Ideally, I'd have 2 boars for fertility, and I would time our breeding cycles and introduce the boars to the sows at one time to breed them all in a 3-week window. But it's just not practical to keep 2 boars right now for us, and to keep our one boar by himself. The boar stays with our sows year-round. In some systems, boars won't breed like this, but thus far it has worked really well for us. Unfortunately, it means that we tend to have sows farrowing over a period of time of 5 to 6 weeks. If we time their cycles and bred all at once, we could have them farrowing within a few days of each other, but it's just not worth it for me at this point. This does mean that we have to manage the weaning process a little differently, however. Now, in terms of feeding, some producers keep their sows on 4 to 5 pounds of grain per day. But I've found that 5 to 7 pounds of grain per day is a bit more expensive, but the sows are in better potty condition. I don't want them fat, but I do want them well muscled with some back fat on them. There's only one time in the cycle that I give our sows free choice feed, and it's while they are in milk and while they're being bred. Some studies suggest that an increase in sow's nutrition during her cycling increases fertility, and my anecdotal experience has convinced me of that as well. Further, when a sow's in milk, she consumes and burns a lot of calories for those piglets, and typically needs better feed to improve her body condition. Our sows tend to farrow over a 3 to 5 week window of time. I'd like that to be a shorter window of time, as I've said, but it's enough to make it pretty easy to manage. I place round bales of hay into our paddock. It doesn't have to be good quality eating hay. I have built farrowing huts in the past, and the sows never used them, so I stopped. So how do you keep sows from squashing piglets? Get sows with excellent mothering instincts. I'll address this more in a future video, but currently I've got 6 more gilts or sows that I'm quarantining, I'm weaning, and I'm bringing up to body condition before I introduce them to our boar. Typically, I do not separate our sows in different fields when they're farrowing. Rather, once I see that the farrowing is imminent, I may set up an electric fence around the sow for a couple reasons. First, I'll feed her free choice, and I don't want the other pigs to eat it. If their piglets grow fast in utero, it can lead to birthing problems, so I want to ration feed while they're pregnant. Second, I want the sows with 1 or 2 week old piglets to keep away from the sows that are just farrowing. I want to give them plenty of room to farrow, and usually by setting up a little fence around that, it accomplishes this for the first few days after the sow farrows. Once the piglets mix together, I'm not too worried about it. I do not have problems with boars messing with our piglets immediately after birth. Sometimes the boars can get a little randy and try to breed her. She doesn't particularly like that and tends to stop it, but trying to keep the boar away from the piglets during his attempts to rut is helpful. Our boars have always protected piglets. I'm not sure why, but I think it's because we've developed some good breeding stock. Finally, once all the piglets are born, I free choice feed the whole group of sows, including the boar, until about a month after the last one has farrowed. It depends on sow body condition, and it takes some experience to know what to do and how to do it. Now, weaning the piglets is definitely the most chaotic part of my system, and there are several factors that determine when I wean. It can be as early as 3.5 to 4 weeks, and as long as 6 to 9 weeks. I prefer to keep the piglets on the sows longer. They grow better and faster on milk than they do on grain until they get about 40 or 50 pounds. I don't have access to a lot of the better weaning feeds on my scale. However, there are several reasons that I may wean the piglets sooner. First, if the piglets are stealing colostrum from other piglets, I wean them. Usually my fencing the piglets out is effective enough. And I can also put a little fence around the sows at first if I need to. Once the piglets get 4 weeks old, they roam far and wide from their mothers. If they steal colostrum, maybe even milk, I wean them immediately. It is different when mothers adopt other piglets or when sows co-nurse different groups of piglets together. Second, if the sow's body condition deteriorates, I wean them immediately. Some just do not maintain good body condition after weaning no matter how much you feed them. Some sows will self-wean, but not always. Now, I do not have good structure in place to wean. When I'm ready, the piglets are usually up, walking around, they're eating grain, and while they're grazing, I pick them up by the back legs, support their body if they're heavier, and then I move them to a place out of sight of the sows where I can set them down. Do not cuddle the piglets. They don't like being off the ground. They don't like you. They don't like cuddles. They scream, and when they scream, the sows react immediately. It's safer for everybody involved. Now, at this time, I go on and castrate if I haven't already, and I also worm them and give them ear shots and a shot of ivermectin when I place them into the training pen. Now, how do I train pigs to the electric fence? I place them in a 4,000 square foot pen for several days, usually several weeks. Usually they're here longer. I also give them a worming pellet with Safeguard or febendazole. Both the ivermectin and the febendazole treat different sets of parasites for pigs. I keep a lot of carbon-based bedding in the pen, and it works really well. The pen is made of goat panels with 2 strands of electric fencing on it. They usually get the hang of it within a couple days. However, they are often in there for a month or more, depending on the weather, how big the piglets are, and how easy it is to manage them. I prefer having them a little bit taller so I don't have to keep the electric fence so close to the ground when I move them into the weaning pen. Once the pigs are in the weaning pen, again, depending on the weather, depending on several other factors, some of the pigs may be in there for 3, 4, 5, 8 weeks, and some of them may only be in there for a week or 2, depending on when they're born and how well trained they are. Then, once the piglets are weaned, I start moving them into our pastured fences with electric fencing. Now, let me say, I am farrowing our pigs on pasture, so we tend to have warm winters. It rarely gets below 30 degrees. We do have a lot of frost and even some freezes for a couple days, but our pigs tend to do really well just having a bale of hay on the ground. Now, I'm also selecting our breeder pigs, particularly our gilts and our sows, for growth rate, for fertility, but most importantly for good mothering instincts within our setting. And that's the subject of the next video that we'll be talking about on how we farrow our pigs on pasture. Take care and have a great day.